I want to ask you something uncomfortable. How long have you been trying to improve yourself?
1 year? 3? Maybe longer?
And honestly, how much has actually changed?
Not what you plan to change. Not what the books promised would change. What has genuinely, permanently, measurably changed.
For most people, the honest answer is less than the effort deserved.
And this is the paradox nobody talks about. The people who try hardest to improve, who read the most books, follow the most habits, consume the most content about growth.
They are often not the people who change the most.
Because there is a specific trap inside the self-improvement world. A trap that feels like progress, that looks like effort, that produces the feeling of growth without the substance of it.
Today, we name that trap. And we show you what genuine self-improvement, the kind that actually changes your life, looks like instead.
Not more effort, different effort, in the right direction. Starting today. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Speak Unstoppable, the podcast where we help you speak English naturally and confidently through real, honest conversations.
I'm John.
And I'm Maria. So happy you're here with us today.
This episode is for B1 to B2 learners, intermediate to upper intermediate level English.
Before we go further, if you are finding value in what we do here, please subscribe to Speak Unstoppable right now. One tap. And you never miss an episode. We release new content every week, and every episode is designed to grow your English and your thinking at the same time.
Subscribed? Good. Now, let's talk about something that almost every motivated person needs to hear.
How are you feeling today, John?
Honestly, reflective. Because this topic, I have been inside the trap we are describing today for years, and recognizing it was uncomfortable and necessary.
Same. Thank you for being here. Let's go. Okay, I want to describe a person, and I want you to tell me if you recognize them.
Go ahead.
They wake up early. They exercise. They journal. They read personal development books. They follow the routines. They track their habits. They are genuinely motivated, genuinely trying.
They sound impressive.
And 2 years later, their external life looks almost identical to what it looked like at the start. Same job, same relationships, same financial position, same struggles showing up in slightly different forms.
What went wrong?
Nothing went wrong with the effort. The effort was real. The commitment was real.
What went wrong was the direction.
They were optimizing the wrong things, improving their habits while avoiding the deeper questions that would have actually changed their life.
Today, we talk about what those deeper questions are and how to ask them in English, with everything you need to start improving the things that actually matter. Okay. The trap, and I want to name it very specifically.
The self-improvement trap is this: consuming content about growth as a substitute for doing the uncomfortable things that actually produce growth.
Reading about discipline instead of becoming disciplined.
Listening to podcasts about confidence instead of doing the thing that requires confidence.
Tracking habits in a beautiful journal instead of actually building the habits that would change the trajectory.
And here is what makes this trap so effective. It feels like growth. It produces a genuine feeling of progress, of movement, of being on the path.
Because intellectually, you are engaging with growth material. You understand the concepts. You can speak intelligently about the ideas.
But understanding a concept is not the same as living it. And living it, actually changing your behavior, it is uncomfortable in a way that consuming content about it never is.
And the brain, naturally, automatically, prefers the comfortable version of growth to the uncomfortable one.
So, it substitutes. Unconsciously. Without deciding to. It gives you the feeling of progress through consumption while avoiding the discomfort of actual change.
Substitutes means replaces one thing with another that seems similar but is fundamentally different.
And the result? Years of motivation. Years of content consumption. Years of tracking and journaling and planning with far less actual change than the effort deserved.
Maybe you know this feeling. You have been trying to improve for a long time. And you are not where you expected to be.
Today, that changes. Not by consuming more, by asking better questions. Okay, if consuming more content is the trap, what is the exit?
3 specific questions. And these are not comfortable questions, which is exactly why they produce what comfortable content never does.
Question 1. What am I specifically avoiding?
Not, what do I want to improve? That question produces more content consumption, more planning, more comfortable engagement with the idea of improvement.
But what am I avoiding? What specific action, conversation, decision, or change am I consistently not doing, even though I know it would move my life forward?
And the answer to this question, when answered honestly, is almost always the real work. The thing that would actually change the trajectory.
The book you are reading about confidence is not the work. The conversation you have been avoiding for 3 months, that is the work.
The podcast about financial habits is not the work. The budget you have never made, the salary conversation you have never had, the financial decision you keep postponing, that is the work.
Question 1. What am I specifically avoiding? Answer it honestly. And then, do that thing.
Question 2. What am I improving that does not need improving?
This sounds strange, but most people who fall into the self-improvement trap are improving the wrong things.
They are optimizing their morning routine when their real problem is their relationship with fear.
They are reading about productivity when their real issue is that they are working on the wrong goals entirely.
They are improving skills that are already adequate when the bottleneck is something else completely.
Bottleneck means the point in a system that limits the overall performance. The weakest link.
And improving what is not the bottleneck, however genuinely, does not improve the overall result. Because the bottleneck remains.
Question 2. What is the actual bottleneck in my life right now? And is what I am improving actually addressing it?
Question 3. What would I do if I were not afraid of it?
This question, answered honestly, almost always reveals the real direction.
Because the things most worth doing, the changes that would most significantly move a life, they are almost always the ones that carry the most fear.
The career change, the difficult conversation, the creative work you have been protecting by never starting, the relationship issue you have been managing instead of addressing.
These are not comfortable to name, and they are certainly not comfortable to do.
But they are where the actual growth lives. Not in the morning routine, in the uncomfortable thing you know you need to do and have been avoiding under the comfortable cover of self-improvement.
Question 3. What would I do if I were not afraid? And then do that.
Okay, we have named the trap and the questions. Now let's describe what genuine self-improvement actually looks like in practice.
Because it looks very different from what the self-improvement industry usually shows.
Genuine self-improvement is often boring from the outside.
It does not have a beautiful morning routine. It is not tracked in a color-coded journal. It does not produce shareable content.
It looks like a person who identified the specific conversation they had been avoiding for 6 months and had it, and dealt with the discomfort of the aftermath, and built something real from it.
It looks like a person who recognized they were spending energy improving skills that were already adequate and redirected that energy toward the bottleneck, the thing that was actually limiting their life.
It looks like a person who stopped consuming content about the thing they wanted to do and started doing it imperfectly, with resistance, with failure, with learning that only comes from actual doing.
Genuine self-improvement is uncomfortable. It is specific. It is directed at the real obstacle, not the comfortable approximation of it.
And it produces results that are visible in your life, not just in how you feel when you are consuming content about growth.
The test, always, is simple. Is my external life changing? Are my actual circumstances, relationships, capabilities, and options measurably different from what they were a year ago?
If yes, you are on the right track.
If no, you may be in the trap. And today, you know how to exit it.
And let's connect this directly to your English, because everything we have said today applies precisely here.
Most English learners fall into the exact same trap.
They consume English content. They listen to podcasts like this one. They watch videos. They read about English learning strategies. They follow accounts about improving their language.
And they feel like they are improving their English. Because they are engaging with English.
But genuine English improvement, the kind that makes you genuinely more fluent, more natural, more capable in real situations, it requires the uncomfortable version.
Speaking in real situations. Before you feel ready, despite the anxiety, despite the mistakes, despite the uncertainty.
And the people who do this, who have the uncomfortable English conversations, who attempt the difficult phrases, who speak before they are sure they will do it perfectly.
They improve, measurably, in ways that are visible in their actual English performance.
And the people who consume, who listen and read and engage with the idea of English without producing it,
they feel like they are improving, and their actual English remains largely where it was.
The test for your English. Can you do things in English now that you could not do a year ago? Real things, in real situations.
If yes, you are improving genuinely.
If no, ask the 3 questions. What am I avoiding in my English practice? What is the actual bottleneck? What would I do if I were not afraid?
And then do that.
Real English phrases. For talking about genuine growth in yourself and with others.
Category 1. Recognizing the trap honestly.
I've been consuming a lot of content about this, but I haven't been doing the actual uncomfortable work.
I think I've been improving the wrong things. The real bottleneck is something I've been avoiding.
I'm going to ask myself what I'm actually afraid of, because that's probably where the real work is.
Category 2. Describing genuine change.
What's changed for me is not my habits. It's that I finally had the conversation I'd been avoiding for months.
I stopped reading about this and started doing it. The improvement since then has been more than the previous 2 years combined.
The uncomfortable thing was exactly where the growth was. I just had to be willing to feel the discomfort.
Category 3. Talking about growth with others.
I think the most important self-improvement question is not what do I want to improve, it's what am I avoiding?
Real change almost always goes through something uncomfortable. The comfortable version of growth is usually the trap.
The bottleneck in my development right now is underscore, underscore, underscore. And that's what I'm actually working on.
Can I say something about what genuine self-improvement produces beyond the specific changes?
Please.
It produces something that content consumption never can. Evidence.
What kind of evidence?
Evidence that you are capable of doing uncomfortable things, of identifying what you are avoiding and doing it anyway, of choosing the real work over the comfortable approximation.
And this evidence, accumulated through genuine self-improvement, it changes the relationship you have with yourself.
You become someone who has done difficult things, not someone who knows about difficult things, not someone who plans to do difficult things, someone who has actually done them.
And that identity, built through real action, real discomfort, real change, it is the foundation of genuine confidence.
Not the confidence that comes from consuming motivational content, the confidence that comes from having moved through real obstacles and emerged on the other side.
Remember this, real self-improvement is not what you consume. It is what you do despite the discomfort of doing it.
Say it once. Clearly.
Real self-improvement is not what you consume. It is what you do despite the discomfort of doing it.
Do the uncomfortable thing. That is where the real growth lives.
Word tour time. 6 key words.
Word 1. Substitute. To replace one thing with another that seems similar but is fundamentally different. Example 1. She had been substituting content consumption for actual practice, and her English had barely moved in a year. Example 2. Recognize your substitutions. What are you doing that feels like the work, but avoids the actual uncomfortable part?
Word 2. Bottleneck. The point in a system that limits the overall performance, the constraint that determines the maximum outcome. Example 1. His bottleneck was not his skills, it was his unwillingness to have difficult conversations. Improving skills without addressing the bottleneck changed nothing. Example 2. Find your bottleneck. In your English, in your career, in your relationships. Everything else is secondary.
Word 3. Trajectory. The path or direction something is moving over time. Example 1. 2 years of self-improvement content had not changed her trajectory because none of it addressed what she was actually avoiding. Example 2. Daily English production, however imperfect, changes your trajectory. Passive consumption feels productive, but rarely does.
Word 4. Measurable. Able to be quantified or assessed objectively. Example 1. Genuine self-improvement produces measurable change in your actual circumstances, not just your feelings about them. Example 2. Measure your English improvement in real situations, conversations had, things understood, phrases used naturally, not in lessons completed.
Word 5. Discomfort. a feeling of mild pain or unease. In this context, the psychological discomfort of doing something difficult or unfamiliar. Example 1. The discomfort was exactly where the growth was. She just needed to be willing to stay in it long enough to get through it. Example 2. English discomfort, the anxiety before speaking, it is not a signal to stop. It is a signal that you are at the edge of your current ability, which is exactly where growth happens.
Word 6. Optimize. To make the best or most effective use of something. Example 1. He had been optimizing his morning routine when the real problem was the work he was avoiding in the afternoon. Example 2. Optimize your English practice for production, not for comfort. The comfortable version of practice produces the slowest improvement.
One thing this week.
Answer the 3 questions. In writing. Honestly.
What am I specifically avoiding? What is my actual bottleneck? What would I do if I were not afraid?
Write the answers. And then, this week, do one thing from question 3.
Just one. The thing you have been avoiding. The uncomfortable version.
Here is your sentence template.
The self-improvement I have been doing is underscore, 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 underscore. The thing I have been avoiding, the real work, is underscore, underscore. And this week, I am going to do it.
Say it out loud. With your real answers.
The self-improvement I have been doing is underscore, 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 underscore. The thing I have been avoiding is underscore, underscore, underscore. And this week, I am going to do it.
Mean every word. And then, do it.
Comment challenge.
What is one thing you have been avoiding under the cover of self-improvement? Write it using this sentence. I have been improving underscore, underscore, underscore score. But the thing I have actually been avoiding is underscore, 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 underscore. And this week, I am going to face it. Write it. In English. In the comments. Honestly,
We read every comment.
please give this a like.
Subscribe to Speak Unstoppable.
Thank you for being here.
Real self-improvement is not what you consume.
It is what you do despite the discomfort.
Do the uncomfortable thing.
Bye, everyone.